It's 55 tons. It's an iconic medium mech. It's got a good combination of firepower, speed, armor, jump jet ability. I've just named the Shadowhawk and the Griffin. And when you think about kind of unseen, re-seen, soon to be seen again, classic Battletech, these two mechs kind of rise to the top of the pack, rise to the top of the lance. And in my opinion, combined with the Wolverine, this is the trinity. This is the trinity of, or I should say the trifecta, of medium-type mechs in Battletech. If you had to inherit a mech, you could do a lot worse. You could do a lot with those mechs on there. So in this podcast, this vlog, we are going to go head-to-head, challenge to challenge, looking at these two machines that have similar stats from the perspective of the mech warrior. And some considerations if you were fighting such a machine, Shadowhawk versus Griffin, what do we need to keep in mind? And then tactically, we're going to turn the analysis over to you guys and kind of explore the what if. What do you think? And this builds on those of us who are new to this amazing game, the starter set, and the various things that Catalyst is pushing out, getting those neophyte mech warriors up to speed, getting them out of the training, getting them out of that chameleon, and into that mech proper. So the Griffin right away excites me. I'm attracted to it because it's pushing out PPCs and an LRM 10 pack. I like things that do 10 or higher damage on there. I like big guns. But what's interesting about the Griffin is it has both of these weapons that are paired very, very well in that they can strike at long range. You're utilizing the PPC. That's 10 points. You know, that's got some bite on there going up against medium and light mechs. And if it's going up against the Shadowhawk, not that we ever want to get hit, 10 points is pretty consistent damage on there. This is paired with the long-range missile 10-pack that has a similar range. And while you could roll legendary and do some really good damage on there, it's more like working in tandem at optimal range. Punch through with the PPC, soften things up with the LRM pack, and then fish around a little bit for some crits in there. See what you can seek out and find just by scattering the dice. We're going to put indirect fire aside for a moment simply because in this tactical exercise, this tactica, it's existing only one-to-one. You know, a duel or deep recon, and this is what we're fighting against in there. So as the Griffin, with the Griffin, if I see that Shadowhawk, we're both kind of matched for mobility and jump. I want to stay at range. I want to stay at longish range. Of course, you know, I'm going to use terrain and see what we can do and just try to punch away and just score 2 or 3 hits over time, essentially run and gun or gun and run on that Shadowhawk. That would be my strategy on there. And I would have to be mindful because the Shadowhawk, in my opinion, strategy is antithesis to the Griffin. Shadowhawk wants to get close. So I have to be aware of how fast that Griffin can close, especially if I get cornered into one of the areas on the hex map and play it around on there. So I'm just going to look to try and really soak it with the missiles and blast it with that PPC with a little bit of movement finesse. Shadowhawk. Okay, scanners have scanned. You see it's a Griffin. What we're going to look at, Shadowhawk's interesting because it has a little bit of something. Certainly not high damage. And one could say, based on the possible, I should say, of course, we're looking at stock variants on here. You know, the stock mech on there. No customizations or some of the more popular variants. Not that they're not valid, but just to kind of keep it equal on there. Shadowhawk delivers slightly less damage, but it has multiple weapon systems at multiple brackets, a little bit more redundancy. So the dice are going to be a little more forgiving than the Shadowhawk. So at long range, we're going to open up with that autocannon 5, and we're going to open up with the LRM 5 pack on there. That's look, Battletech, as soon as you're in range, you start rolling the dice. This might be your time to roll legendary. You never know. So, of course, that's a good tactic. But from the perspective of the Hawk, I don't want to run and gun. I don't want to stay at range, because if we both dance at range, that PPC and the 10-pack can consistently put out more damage than I can possibly put out on there. So my tactic is going to be, look, I'm in range and I'm going to start shooting. I'm going to look to close to optimal range. I'm going to look to close to medium to short range, where I can bring to bear, in theory, all 4 of my weapons on there. Or if I have to close, really close the distance, which we're going to look at, if I can't use the long-range missile pack, I've got the autocannon, I've got the medium laser, and I've got the short-range missile pack. The Shadowhawk has a higher rate of fire, of controlled fire, versus the Griffin. So what I want to try and do is the Shadowhawk Mech Warrior, I want to try and pilot that thing as close as possible. On the way in, I've got something to do with the autocannon and the long-range missiles, but I'm going to try and get close. I'm going to try and maybe even dance a little bit under the minimum range of the Griffin PPC and 10-pack. So now the Griffin is even harder to hit, because although maybe we're at short range, we've got movement modifiers, we've got hex modifiers, we've got the under the range modifiers on there. Plus the Griffin, if it goes full aggressive, it's it's a lot more challenging to deal with heat on there. So I want to close, and in my opinion, that's how I'm going to win with the weapon systems of the Shadowhawk. Flipping it back to the Griffin for a second, then we're going to open it up in the comments for your thoughts on this mech-to-mech challenge. I don't want to get... This is the fine line. And really, tactically, we'd have to see how it plays out. I mean, there's a lot of possibilities based on the map and what's going on and the damage that both of us have taken. I want to get close, and I want to dance on that closeness, but I need to make sure that I'm not so close that the Griffin player goes, you know what? I'm just going to run up and start punching. Although, certainly punching is an option on there. Do I want to get into a punching match? That's just the luck of the dice. I mean, because again, we're looking at the exact same tonnage. We're looking at 2 hands each versus 2 hands each. That's just essentially who blinks first. I'd rather be dancing at close range, stacking the modifiers on the Griffin and blasting away with the lasers and the missiles and the autocannon and all that type stuff. I just have to make sure that the Griffin does not rush me on there. And if things go really however they go, there's always death from above.